So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Hannah from the Bangor Public Library. Just wanted to say a quick hello and thank you all for joining us today. We're very excited to have Beth Calder here from the UMaine Cooperative Extension as the latest installment in our series that we do in partnership with SCORE Northern Maine on different topics for small business owners and entrepreneurs. So I'm going to hand it over to Donna to say a few words about SCORE and introduce Beth, and then we'll get going. Go ahead, Donna.
Thank you, Hannah, and welcome everybody. A little bit about SCORE. If you don't know anything about us, we're a volunteer organization. In our Northern Maine chapter, we have 30 volunteers, and throughout Maine, we have about 120 volunteers that help people with their business plans, either starting a business, thinking about starting a business, maybe you've owned a business for 20 years. We're there really for the life of your business. And if you'd like to have a mentor, just go to score.org, tell us a little bit about your business and say, I'd like a mentor, and we'll be sure that we match you up with someone who can really give you some help. So we're excited about doing that. And again, we hope we hear from a few of you to help with any of your business plans. Today, we're very excited to have Dr. Beth Calder. She's director of the University of Maine Food Testing Services. And the other thing I think about Beth that's interesting is she also works with MOFGA, the Maine Organic Farmers Association, and also the Maine Cheese Guild. So she is really having an impact statewide. And today we're really thinking about this as more of a learn a little bit about the program. And as Beth will talk about, there's opportunities for you to get involved in more learning. So with that, Beth, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Donna. And I want to thank SCORE, Donna and Dan, and also the Bangor Public Library, Hannah, for inviting me to speak today. It's my pleasure to be here. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We'll get started. Okay, how does that look? Look good, Hannah? Okay, great.
Good.
All right. So today's talk, I'd like to go over how UMaine can help assist startup food business. It's going to kind of particularly work on the angle of startups, but we also assist well-established businesses as well. Again, I'm Beth Calder, the Extension Food Science Specialist and Professor of Food Science with both Cooperative Extension and the School of Food and Agriculture, and also the Director of the Food Testing Services. And I am located at the University of Maine at the Orono campus. I can advance my slide here. Here we go. So a brief overview of my presentation. I'll talk a little bit about me and my role at UMaine, some of the information resources that we offer online, as well as educational programs, our testing services that we offer, as well as some research and additional expertise that's available, some other colleagues of mine that help other food businesses, as well as some facilities if anyone's close to the Orono Bangor area, it's handy to you and that they're available to rent. So a little bit about me. I am from Maine. I grew up on a dairy farm in Skowhegan. I have a background in both nutrition and food science, and I've been in this position for, can't believe it, 17 years. It flew by fast, and the Director of Food Testing Services for 9 years. And I am also a recognized FDA process authority for canned shelf-stable food products. Again, located at the Orono campus. And as Dawn had mentioned, I work closely with Cheese Guild, MOFGA. I also, in my role, work very closely with the Maine Department of Ag, Conservation, and Forestry, especially the Consumer Food Inspection Program. We have a very good working relationship with our consumer food inspectors. They're fantastic to work with. And I work with food businesses in Maine and also across the nation. I just recently been in contact with someone from Oahu, way over in Hawaii, believe it or not, to possibly do some testing for them. I think because we specialize in working with small businesses and we have so many small businesses in Maine, folks see that on our website, and they're instantly attracted to that. So in my role, I help people primarily start new food businesses, help them through our testing services, and also help them with sometimes it's a straightforward process that they're working on, and sometimes people are getting into more creative food products and they have a little bit more complex process in helping them navigate that, developing new products and understanding the licensing and regulations and how that would impact the food business as well. And I'm super excited because I think now is a great time. We have a very a thriving food system in Maine, and it's exciting to hear about the Fork Food Lab down Portland area expanding. We also have funding to start a UMaine Food Innovation Center in the future, with Bangor Shared Use Kitchen commercial project going on, as well as some others. Donna mentioned there might be one going up in Skowhegan area. So it's just an exciting time to be a part of the food industry. And I really enjoy my role helping food businesses to become successful. So some general information, we have an online fact sheet on how to start a food business in Maine. It's a Cooperative Extension Bulletin 3101 and a link. And if folks want a copy of this PowerPoint in the form of a handout, hopefully I can connect with Hannah and she can email that out to folks.
Yeah, definitely. I'll send them out to everybody after.
Great, because we got a lot of resource links in my presentation. We also have a nice, Louis Bassano, Jim McCon and I developed a nice online website called Resources for Food Entrepreneurs, which some folks may not be aware of, but it covers a lot of different topics, such as pricing your food product, business plans, templates, financing, tax information. It's sort of a wealth of information. Highly recommend folks checking that website out. We also, through our general extension websites, have some resource links for food businesses, trainings. Our testing services is all connected there, and a couple of links for people to check out. And then next, I'd like to talk about some of our educational programs and workshops. One of our more popular ones, Recipe to Market, is a workshop on how to start a food business. We started this back in 2007, and over the years, we've changed the format. So now, post-pandemic, we teach it for it's a 3-hour Zoom program from 9 to noon, and the next one will be scheduled on April 18th. So if anyone's interested, please feel free to check in with either Melissa or our online website to sign up for Recipe to Market and be on our waiting list. And then we'll contact you once we start to organize the next workshop and have the registration site up. We also offer other food safety programs through Cooperative Extension for the more established food businesses. Once you get into starting a food business, some food businesses are required to take HACCP, which is Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point training. And this training is sort of a food safety program, and it's required for the seafood processors, meat and poultry, as well as juice processors. And we teach several of these workshops through UMaine Cooperative Extension. We also offer some FDA, FSMA food safety programs. Again, that'd be for more larger firms. And we also offer a basic sanitation course that's newly designed, which has both an online and in-person kind of two separate programs, a part 1 and a part 2. And so that's now offered. And we're hoping to expand more future programs, more online content to help support the food industry. So more to come. So again, we're located at the University of Maine. That's for the University of Maine School of Food and Ag, so the Food Science Department, as well as our Cooperative Extension Food Safety, Food Science team. We're at the Orono campus in Hitchner, and also our rental facilities are located in Hitchner as well, and we'll talk about those in a few minutes. But next, I'd like to talk about our food testing services, which are for canned shelf stable food products. Most products that are canned shelf stable have to be tested, evaluated by a process authority. So we're providing actual chemistry tests of the product. We're having you submit the recipe and the your processing methods to ensure the product's not a botulism risk. So what we have you do is we have an online portal and have you submit the recipe once it's converted onto a weight basis, and also submitting the detailed processing methods, including the payment. And then we just need one sample in the container you wish to sell that product in, either mailed to us or dropped off. And then as part of the process, I will email the results to you. It's a very individualized, comprehensive letter, and it also discusses all of the processing, safe processing methods, hot fill temperatures or water bath processing times, and all the critical safety factors to follow, and what the FDA would classify your product as, which is super helpful. If you have an acidified food, sometimes there's more regulations for those products and you have to submit more forms to the FDA. So additional expertise that we have on staff at the University of Maine is Rob Dumas, who's our Food Science Innovation Coordinator and Facility Manager, and he oversees the pilot plant and our commercial kitchen. He has over 20 years of food service experience, and he's a certified executive chef. And he likes to help businesses with product development issues or ideas, and also helps with product scale-up projects. And there's a link to his pilot plant website. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about some of our facilities that we offer that's available for food businesses to rent as far as space goes. So our commercial kitchen is a licensed production kitchen for non-perishable food products. There are 6 workstations with working gas range ovens, convection oven, and these workstations are fully stocked with small wares and utensils. And also at this space, we have a variety of countertop appliances and great access to professional support. And this space is much more available during the summer because it is used for student classes as well. And so the Dr. Matthew Highlands, our food pilot plant, it's a unique facility. There's a lot of unique equipment there. It's quite diverse, and it's well suited for processing Maine's agricultural products. And so you have that, you're centrally located to the intellectual resources within the SFA faculty and cooperative extension. And there's flexible availability and it's affordable. It's not, however, a licensed facility. So this is just an R&D facility. So if you were to work on a scale-up project, you couldn't then sell that product to customers, but you could definitely do it under, just as you're aware that it's for R&D purposes only. And again, recipe development, product development, and assistance with scale-up is all great projects to be done at the pilot plant. I have a couple of pictures here. So on the left is a little snapshot of our commercial kitchen. And there's Rob there working with a colleague of his. And on the right is a little snapshot of one of the corners of the pilot plant. And if anyone's ever interested in reaching out to us to get a tour, to talk to Rob or I, feel free to reach out to us. And here's our contact information and a little bit about what each one of us does at UMaine. And I just want to thank you all for attending today. We had some great attendance, and I look forward to helping answer your questions.
Thank you, Beth. Before we dig into specific questions, I'd love for folks, if you are sort of in the food business or hoping to be in the food business, if you want to just throw in the chat what type of food you're working on, whether it's jam or pickles or seafood. I think that'd be really interesting for us to just get a sense of who's here today. And we'll wait for those to come through, and then we can go into sort of more specific Q&A and see what else Beth can help with.
Mm-hmm.
Beth, while we're waiting for that, just a question about, do you go to anyone's facility, or do you go out in the field, or are you mostly people will come to you? So which way does it work?
Usually people come to me, and if it gets to the point where it makes sense that I can come for a visit, then I will sometimes visit folks, but for the most part, it's reaching out, and a lot of times we can discuss things over the phone or Zoom or via email.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I'm getting hungry just looking at all these foods that are being put on here.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm seeing a bunch of bread, baked goods,
Mm-hmm.
some jams and pickles and salsa, restaurant and bakery, flavoring balsamic vinegars and olive oils. That sounds great.
Yeah, it does.
And then, yeah, some beef and pork, Stand and Shuck oyster bar,
Mm-hmm.
smoothies, soup, sandwich.
If it'd be helpful, I can kind of give folks a quick overview of there are 2 regulatory agencies in Maine for some of those folks that are at the very early stages. So what I like to sort of describe is that folks that are thinking of doing like catering or a food truck or something like that, where you're producing that product and you're going to be feeding it directly to the consumer afterwards. Those folks would be regulated through the health inspection program, and that's through DHS. And most all other folks would be regulated or inspected under the Maine Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry Quality Assurance Program. And so typically the 2 most common licenses under the Maine Department of Ag are either commercial, or here in Maine, we're lucky that some folks that are producing non-perishable food products can produce them under a home food processor's license in their kitchen. So a lot of the pickle goods, baked goods, candies, confections, most of those products can be produced under a home food processor's license.
Great. So we are getting a few specific questions coming through too. One person asks, I'm planning to open a smoothie, soup, sandwich, coffee, cafe. What certifications are required?
Definitely want to talk to the folks at Health Inspection Program for that.
Oh, this is interesting. Micah says, I'm building a small commercial kitchen for my own use and to rent out to the community. I'm surrounded by restaurants and they always need extra space from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
Not a specific question, but an interesting use case here.
Yes, excellent. I just would add that if you are going to have folks rent your space, to make sure that they are also licensed as well. A lot of people don't understand. They think, oh, I'm going to rent out this commercial kitchen. I don't need my own license, but you actually do, because the regulatory agency wants to make sure that you're individually licensed to produce that product in the commercial kitchen. That's how that works.
And Charles says, I run a vending machine business and would like to make prepackaged cookies and other baked goods to increase profits. I also think about a barbecue place. We all think about a barbecue place from time to time, don't we?
Uh-huh. That sounds more like DHS, I think, Health Inspection Program. Although,
okay, oh, go ahead.
I think that you kind of could cross into, if you wanted to sell at your local's farmer's market with the baked goods, you could do that under a Maine Department of Ag license as well.
Erica says, bakery and apothecary, licensed home processing kitchen, and we are approved for jams and jellies, berry and rhubarb. We specialize in pastries and other baked goods. We are looking to learn about how to license and scale up our salad dressings and our protein bars.
Great. Definitely could help with the salad dressing. The protein bar might be more a Rob Dumas type project. Yep. Definitely could help with that salad dressing though.
Yeah. Sarah's building a commercial kitchen to move toward wine production. Folks talking about homesteading, making preserves, growing mushrooms to sell locally.
Okay, so wine, once you get into anything that contains over 0.5% alcohol, requires Maine liquor licensing, talking to them early on and what their requirements are. You may end up having to get your own separate beverage facility. I'm not sure. You may want to talk to the Maine Department of Ag as well. But once you start selling, especially outside of Maine, then the TTB gets involved, the federal agency that deals with alcoholic products.
Beth, if someone wanted help with recipe development, which sounds pretty interesting, what kind of fees are associated with that?
Oh, great question. That's more of a Rob question. I'm not sure how much he's charging now, but I think it just depends on the scope of the project and what's required.
Okay.
Here's another cost question, which is what's the cost to rent the commercial kitchen at UMaine?
Yeah, again, you'll have to reach out to Rob. I should have checked in with him to see what he was charging, but I think it really does depend on the scope of project and the time, and he may provide a price break if someone was going to use the facility for more than one use.
And yeah, that contact info will be in the slides that we'll send out. So everybody will have a chance to deluge Rob with emails after this. Sarah says, interested to learn who I can talk to about Bangor shared use commercial kitchen. I don't know if that's you want in on a kitchen, or you have a kitchen you want to share with folks, Sarah. Maybe you can clarify, or you can just speak to either scenario, Beth.
Yeah, I think Stephen Boldick is the contact person. And I can't quite remember if someone will have to if somebody knows Stephen, what I think he's economic development director, possibly for the town of Bangor. And I don't have his contact info, but he's overseeing, I believe, that shared use kitchen project in Bangor.
Okay.
We're at the very early stages still, as I understand.
Okay, so Katie asks, can you sell wholesale bread to grocery stores, restraints with a home food processor license, or do I need a commercial kitchen? Oh, restaurants. Yeah, this grocery stores or restaurants. Can you sell wholesale bread with a home food processor license, or do you need a commercial kitchen?
You can. Yep, you can. Under the home food processor's license, you can sell pretty much anywhere you want, any outlet you want to.
Great.
Oh, I saw someone had Steve's contact info in the chat.
Oh, super. I will include that in the follow-up email as well. Yeah. Okay, Patience says, not currently in the food business, but interested in making meals, hot meals for home catering. So cooking the meals from home and selling it. Have people pick up, or we drop it off to them? Curious to know the regulations and licensing around that.
I believe that will require a commercial kitchen, so I don't think you can do that at the home, but definitely check in with the health inspection program through DHS about that.
Okay, and then Melanie says, I already have a B&B license, but if I rent the kitchen at the Island store, what sort of personal license are you suggesting I will need?
I would check in. It depends on who her folks are. If they're doing catering and they're still under health inspection, it would still fall under that licensing. But if these folks would say someone wanted to make a barbecue sauce to sell to retail wholesale outlets, that person would have to get a license through the Maine Department of Agriculture, Conservation and Forestry, and they would want to talk to them about licensing. Or if they want to do dual licensing in that kitchen, possibly, she could possibly talk to them as well.
Cool. Rianne asks, is there a commercial kitchen in Orono or Bangor area for rent?
So there's the one at our pilot plant for non-perishable products. I don't think we have any other options, but if I'm wrong, if anyone who's on our Zoom call here can think of anyone, just feel free to let us know. But as far as I know, I think our commercial kitchen is the only one available at the moment.
Okay, and Dana asks, do you help home cooks and small businesses produce food labels so they can sell to larger stores like Hannaford?
So we don't actually provide that service, but we can get you in touch with folks that can. And actually the nutrition facts labels aren't required for small scale producers. Could be a certain size before you're required by the FDA to have it on your label.
Teresa says, I'm building a food truck and need to know where to find building material codes and information such as, does Maine allow a bathroom in a food truck?
Oh, that's a good question. Again, I'd talk to Health Inspection Program about that. I think they'd be the folks to talk to about the food truck requirements.
Okay.
And if you're at in a certain town where you're gonna be selling it, you may want to talk to I don't know if it would apply or not, but maybe the town code enforcement as well.
Yeah, and there's just a quick question in the chat about the recording. I will send out the recording as well as the slides to everybody on the registration list. So don't panic if you miss something, you can go back and watch it later. Okay, Sarah asks, what exactly do we need to do for selling our home processed items online as it is selling out of state, even though our virtual storefront is located in Maine?
Okay, so it depends on the product. So I'll give you an example why pickle products require a little, there's a little bit more of regulations required for those products. So it all depends on the product category. If you have what's called an acidified food, basically it's a lot of low acid ingredients like vegetables, and you're adding vinegar to lower the pH level to a safe level. Once you get tested through us and approved, and you also have a license through the Maine Department of Ag, you can sell within Maine, but you can't sell online because once you go across state lines, then you're required to submit additional paperwork to the FDA. It's called a scheduled process, and also obtain a food canning establishment number from the FDA and submit all that paperwork before you can then sell at a state or online. So that's just for acidified foods. Naturally acidic foods, or a product that we call predominantly acid food, like sometimes barbecue sauces might fit under that. Jams and jellies definitely fit under that. They don't, once you get approved from us, you don't need to file any additional paperwork to the FDA. You're all set and good to go. But our review letters do provide that information in the classification of your product. So a lot of good information comes out of our testing process and review letters.
Great. Okay, Erica had asked about the shared use kitchen in Skowhegan, and I saw Donna just put a link in the chat, so it's not available yet, but you've got a way to contact them there. And let's see. Sue asks, when is FDA registration required?
So that's a tricky one. I highly recommend to folks to register with the FDA, but I believe that if you are a small business and have a home food processor's license, you don't have to register with the FDA. But if you decide to make acidified foods, it's a requirement by the FDA to register with them. So I always just recommend do it early, register. All you have to do is submit a form online. There's no cost associated with it. You do it once, and they just like to keep track for traceability purposes of who's making food products across the US.
Great. Chris shares, I think, in response to the question about shared kitchens in Bangor, that Korean Dad restaurant shares their kitchen sometimes.
Oh,
Churches and synagogues are a good place to go to.
Yes, that's a good point.
Okay, circling back to the label conversation, Erica just says, sharing resources for label and package design would be great. Any associated grants for small businesses for this kind of work too? Package design gets very expensive.
Yes, it does. It does. I know that we have some resource providers here online. So if anyone has any additional information for folks as far as money or funds to help support labels or label design, feel free to place them in the chat box. That'd be great. But I just don't know of any funding sources for folks. But I certainly could definitely check into that for anyone that want to contact me. I can look into that further.
Right. Yeah, similarly, Nikki asks, could you advise on how to get barcodes for my products?
Yes, barcodes. Oh, I'm gonna have to do a quick little search. I think it's GS1 is a company. Yes, is a company called GS1, and they're online, and you can check them out to obtain barcodes. I don't know how much it costs, but that's the company usually folks go to obtain barcodes.
Great. Let's see. Oh, yep, and somebody put a URL in the chat for that. That's great. And someone else suggests snap.com for barcodes as well.
Okay,
They say
great.
it may be more cost effective too.
Great.
Bradley mentioned, I believe tastemakers through CEI might have funding for things like labels.
Okay, great.
Just want to say, this is probably one of the best workshops we've had where there's so many people who know so much in the group. So I really want to commend everyone for participating and helping each other, because that's really why we do some of these workshops. Is we want to be an entrepreneur can be very lonely. And it's great to know that there's other people out there who might have answers and who can be supportive. So really kudos to the folks in this workshop. I think you're just doing a great job helping each other.
Hi, this is Sue Hansen. I just wanted to add, I see a lot of the stuff going along. Hi, Beth,
Hi,
and
Sue.
everybody, regarding barcodes. So we work with a lot of food and beverage brands through the Maine Center for Entrepreneurs through our food accelerator programs. And I've seen people purchase UPC codes, get them free or cheaper, and have had a lot of issues with them. So anyone in the consumer packaged goods industry and any experts would recommend that you always buy barcodes from GS1, because they are the most qualified and protected source, and you could read more about them, and they recommend not going to others. So I'm not saying that whoever bought it from Snap, but I'm just sharing that because people have seen issues before that multiple people have the barcodes, and then when you go to update them, it's not connected with your company, et cetera. So there's been issues. It's just an FYI.
Very helpful.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Teresa's asking again about the food truck question. I've run into an issue where my hometown currently has no ordinances for food trucks. They told me they would likely need to default to state regulations. Does this sound accurate? Does the state have a default regulation list for things like building codes, permits to serve? Where might I find that sort of list?
Yeah, I would contact the health inspection program directly if they are lacking any code enforcement in your town. That's what I would do. And see if you can get some guidance from them. They may have a pamphlet of information.
Jackie asks, who do I contact about blending herbs with olive oil infusion?
Yeah, it sounds like a can shelf stable product to me. And so feel free to reach out to me, Jackie, later on, and I can help you through that process. But it would require testing your product.
All right. And Teresa's pointing out another potential grant opportunity in the chat. So
great, thank you. Excellent.
we've got plenty of time for more questions if people oh, here we go. Rianne just submitted another one. I want to start a restaurant. What's a good start in developing a plan for it? And that might be Beth and Donna can tag team that.
Yeah, well, probably starting with, I always say, I highly recommend starting with your regulatory agency first and foremost before starting any renovation project, because then you're finding out right up front, you can develop a relationship with your inspector, what exactly is required. So I talked to health inspection program first, and then check in with your town code enforcement as well.
Yeah, Rianne, I'd also say at SCORE, we have several people who actually have run restaurants or are running restaurants. And I think what is the most probably important part is to put together a profit and loss statement and really to be able to understand whether, you can make a go of it right on a piece of paper, as opposed to kind of starting one up and then later on finding out that it won't work. And so I think, restaurant business is challenging, there's pretty thin margins. And so I think, having a good business plan, and if you do need to borrow money, which most people would, when you walk into a bank and they see that you have a business plan, a profit and loss statement, that you've done some preliminary work with the folks that Beth suggested, spend all the time you need to prepare, because I think that's really your best chance of success.
I think you could, for any part of the specialty food industry, that words of wisdom would work as well. It's highly competitive.
Okay, and Sue just noted that Tastemakers grant, those applications are due this Friday, the 3rd by midnight. So if you want to do it in this round, get on that this week. But she notes that it's an annual grant program, so you can try again next year if you don't have your information together in the next couple days. And go ahead, David.
Yeah, I'd like to build on what Donna has said about doing the profit and loss and the business plan. Within SCORE, most of us are generalists, the mentors, but we do have some subject matter experts who have run successful restaurant businesses. And if you look for something that's pretty much in depth, we have people that can help with that. So go to SCORE website, sign up, say you want a subject matter expert.
And Dana also notes in the chat that SBA, Small Business Development Centers, can also assist with business plans. And we've got a lot of great resources out there to help with that kind of thing. Beth, Nikki asks if they can reach out to you even if they're not doing business in Maine.
Yes, because we work with businesses across the nation. So feel free to reach out to me, Nikki. Glad to help out.
Great. And yeah, if there are folks on the call who have questions, who are more comfortable speaking them out than having to type them into the chat, I think, we can take turns and go ahead and unmute yourself and speak up. I think we're caught up on what's been put in the chat so far, but we've got still plenty of time for more questions if other folks want to bend Beth's ear and pick her brain about some of these specifics.
Sarah?
Okay, Sarah, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was trying to get myself unmuted. A quick question about funding aside from grants. Loans, what do they cover? What are you allowed to use the loans for? Is there restrictions on loans when it's through this organization like this?
That's a great question.
And what would the the average interest rates be? I know inflation is killing the world right now. So are the interest rates significantly lower than regular loans, and how are they treated?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sarah. I don't know if we have any reps from any of the banks on here, or if any of the service providers might know that information. I'm going to lean on them for this one.
I'll say that people typically start with banks and on businesses where there are, it may be a higher risk business to start with because of capital or any other number of reasons, credit scores. That's when some of our other agencies kind of kick in, who are able to provide loans to you. So I think, again, the best thing is it doesn't have to be SCORE. We say, there's no wrong door. There's lots of agencies that want to help you. So I'd say probably initial discussion would be really good to have. But the most important thing you can do is prepare that business plan and profit and loss statement. So then that's kind of where we can start with you. And don't worry, if it's a blank page, you don't know how to fill it in. That's what we're happy to help you with.
Well, I've been doing it for a couple of years now and selling and such, but I've had some approaches about larger quantities, and scaling up is probably one of the most intimidating things out there. And to scale up, not having the personal funding right now, it's staying afloat, growing with a profit each year over year. It is growing, but when you are approached by a larger facility and they want your product in there, scaling up, I saw the Scale Up Kitchen. That really was exciting, the idea of being able to tour that and deciding what products, but to go from licensed home processing to a commercial kitchen with that scale up is tremendous especially in the canning industry, because I've already done all the approval stuff, which is great. That's out of the way. Now to be able to mass produce, and the scale up kitchen you said is good for testing, but how are those same pieces of equipment used in the rental kitchens, the commercial kitchens? I guess it's all rolled into one. So if you can rent the kitchen, the loan might not be necessary because you can do a rental program. But if you have to purchase large scale equipment to be able to scale up, a loan without that capital backing you is really more risky. So that's why I was thinking, how would the lending work and what can you use it towards?
Mhm. Yeah, that's
And
a
I
great
think if you can have if you can use an already established kitchen, that's such a benefit, because then you don't have your own capital that you're putting into it, and you can really test the market.
Mhm.
That to me is a great opportunity for you.
Okay.
May I add to that? Yeah,
Go ahead.
this is Dave Bork. I'm an advisor to Fork Food Lab.
Mhm.
And I can tell you this, that Fork Food Lab is also a small business incubator. It's, the question about scaling up, first you have to establish your business, and that takes time, whether it be food service or consumer packaged goods or whatever it is you're doing. We're in the process of moving to a much larger facility sometime this year, hopefully soon. It's under construction right now. And we will have the capability of doing limited co-manufacturing. Now, when I say limited, what I mean is small batches. And if you've ever had the experience of working with a regular full-scale co-manufacturing facility, they're talking about doing like 10,000 at a time in a production
Right.
run. That's just way too much for growing businesses. So we
Mhm.
will have the capability of handling that for our members as they scale up. And we will have private kitchen spaces in the facility, because we're moving from a facility now that's about only 6,000 square feet to approximately 32,000 square feet. So this is a huge capacity increase, which is going to help businesses that are moving from the startup stage to the next step up. Not quite all the way up to full scale,
Right.
but definitely moving up. And at the same time, Maine Center for Entrepreneurs, just to reinforce, they do a lot of work with food businesses that are growing. And I think that's a tremendous asset to businesses once they get into that category. I'll also say this too, that there are a lot of great resources in the community. In addition to SCORE, you have SBDC as well as CEI. So please take advantage of those. We will be providing more and more teaching on our own once we move to the new facility. We can't do that now because we do have some, but we're very, very limited now because of the size of our facility. So I just want to let you know that Fork Food Lab is going to grow into one of the largest in the country, and that's this year. So thank
That's
you.
great.
I'm sorry,
David-
if you have your contact information.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's the best way for folks to get in touch if they want to follow up about that?
I'm a retired person who is a volunteer advisor and consultant to Fork Food Lab. The best way to reach Fork Food Lab, and you'll be reaching out to our general manager, Corinne Tompkins. The best way to reach Fork Food Lab is info@forkfoodlab.com.
Okay.
And that's how to get talking to somebody over there. We cannot take on any additional members right now, but Corinne is queuing up additional members. And right now we're at full capacity. We're at around 65 members, and we anticipate going up to about 90 to 120 members once we expand, plus the lease spaces, as I pointed out. So, if you would need any more information about Fork Food Lab, please reach out to Corinne Tompkins.
Great. And I will be sure to include all these links and email addresses and things that are going in the chat in the follow-up email for everybody. So that'll be coming from the library's email address.
Thank you.
There's a lot of discussion that's been sparked by this talk about scaling up. I think you're not alone, Sarah, that people are other people are having this conversation as well. So let me just summarize a little bit that's been coming through the chat here. So Erica talks about how co-manufacturing is an option on scaling up a product. Lots of factors involved. Just attended a series on the topic. ROI calculations about recouping the cost of specialized equipment versus utilizing a co-manufacturer. I think this is a quick one. Nikki asked HACCP, how long is the course and price?
Okay, so I believe the HACCP workshops, it depends. The seafood one is all online. There's a segment 1 and a segment 2. And I don't know what they've raised the price at. I could do a quick online search to see if I can find the pricing, but the person to contact to get on that waiting list is Teresa Tilton at the Bangor or the Penobscot County Extension Office. And I could have folks email me if you're interested in any of those programs, and I can put you on the waiting list myself.
Great.
Mhm.
Okay. I see Chris has his hand raised in the Zoom call. So why don't you go ahead and unmute, Chris? You can ask your question.
Oh, yeah, and I just wanted to, hi, everybody. So I'm a lender, so just to the question about lending, the organization I work with, we primarily work with, we actually work with Forestry Lab, nonprofits in the food system, as well as co-ops, cooperatives mostly, but we do work closely with CI. So I would certainly go to Coastal Enterprises. They have both what's called a wicked fast loan that's 25,000 or under. They can be processed in a matter of weeks. And there's a new program through FAME that we participate in, the Financing Authority of Maine, called Grow Maine. And that might be a good source of capital that I think is a little cheaper than normal. That might be good to help with the capital growth. But the equipment needs and everything, those are good reasons for borrowing a loan. It's all about how are you going to pay it back. And if equipment allows you to produce more and sell more, that's a source of repayment, and it makes sense. So yeah, it makes total sense. And then I did just put in that somebody mentioned the webinar. The webinar that was mentioned is on Maine Food Strategies website and talks about co-manufacturing. Yeah, that's it. And I recently visited a Maine Food Group down in Brunswick, and they're doing a lot of co-packing, but I think there's a few here and in Maine. So I think there's like what's been said, there's a lot of really fascinating, energetic activities happening of trying to keep the value add here in Maine instead of importing everything. So it's exciting. Thanks.
Thank you.
We have 2 co-packing facilities, other than what David mentioned about Fork expanding, but I think it's called the Maine Food Group down in Brunswick. And then there's Pemberton's in Gray, Maine. I believe they like to work with more higher volume clients, but there are a couple of co-packers that you may want to talk to.
Cool. There's a few questions in the chat around creating an LLC. So do you recommend creating an LLC, obtaining an EIN, and opening a business account before building the food truck, or should I wait until I'm closer to being ready to serve? And another person echoes that and says, I'd like to know what companies like LegalZoom, Northwest, Inkfile, which companies would you recommend to do an LLC? Or is it better to pay a lawyer, an accountant in your area for a one-time fee to help get you an LLC? And then someone did note an EIN is free from irs.gov. So don't pay for that part.
Just to, David put in a great link that SCORE has with the 22 most frequently asked questions about this. I'd really highly recommend going to the document. In most cases, people can do it on their own, and they, don't need additional help. It's fairly straightforward, and obviously legal and accounting resources are always helpful. But I would start with that document, and the sooner you can do those kinds of things and have a separate checking account and all those other kinds of things are important. I also see Joe has his hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, mine's about mainly developing my menu. We're primarily going to be a cafe. serving coffee and things like that. But developing the menu so I don't go into each different regulation, like for example, like a seafood license and all the different licensings and stuff. Is there like a good resource to kind of help me, kind of guide me through making those decisions, whether or not I want to have this thing on my menu or not because of licensing, and even in going into the same with you know, like fat laden vapors for having a hood system, whether or not I need to have a fire suppression or not, you know, so those type of things.
So the fire suppression question is definitely a health Department of Health and Human Services health inspection program question, probably town enforcement too, code enforcement. I don't, is when you're talking about seafood on the menu, that's a separate, those regulations are separate than like saying you're going to produce a frozen haddock product or something like that that's going to be sold wholesale. So the regulations for seafood HACCP are different depending on the type of license and type of processing situation. I think once you get into meat, USDA, that's a whole nother area that you'd have to take a look into. I don't know if that would cross over licenses or not as far as the USDA regulations go, but as far as seafood goes, there's retail exemptions for that. So you wouldn't have to necessarily have a HACCP plan. The only time that you want to be careful about is when you get into sous vide or reduced oxygen packaging. As a restaurant, you would have to have some variances and support that and have a HACCP plan. That can get tricky, bog you down a little bit. We have helped folks that are making their own kimchis to help support their variances. So sometimes we'll have restaurants send products to us for testing, like fermented foods, or if they want to sell a hot sauce out of their cafe or restaurant or something like that.
Perfect. I guess I have one little question add
Sure.
on. So with my cafe, I'm trying to tie in all the different great food people we have in our community and using their products. And one of the questions I came up with is using whole milk from a local dairy farm in a coffee shop as an option. Is that something that might be an issue or would be fine as long as they have their licensing through the state?
Right. Well, it depends on the kind of agricultural products. So fruits and vegetables don't have to be licensed. Folks don't have to be licensed, and you can feel free to purchase local. Even eggs, you don't need, I think it's like you under 3,000 laying hens, you don't need a license as well. Once you get into milk, though, they really should be inspected through the Maine Department of Ag. I would just make sure that they're licensed and you should be all set.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
One quick one that came through the chat a little while ago I didn't want to lose was, do you have any bottling facilities?
We don't, not currently at UMaine. That's one thing that we don't have, is any packaging equipment at our space. So that's one thing that we're hoping to have in the future, but currently we don't.
Does the
David
facility in
Green.
Green? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Does the facility in Green have that, Beth?
Which one, Donna?
The facility, is it in Green, Maine? I can't, one of the facilities I think does
Gray?
bottle.
Did you say it was in gray? A
Gray.
different color?
Oh, yes. The co-packers, yes, they all have their own filling lines. I believe. I don't know Maine Food Group as well, but Pemberton's definitely has their own filling line.
Right.
Yeah.
So there is an opportunity to bottle at some of these plants.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, David Green, why don't you go for it?
Okay, thanks, Hannah. The 22 most frequently asked questions give us a lot of good information setting up an LLC on your own. I think it's $125 is the current rate, but also if you want to do business as or any other entity, you might after much searching, be able to find it in the SCORE website. But the easiest way is probably if I send you the document, Hannah, and you can send it out with the notes, then
Yeah,
everyone
absolutely.
will get it cleanly without having to spend half an hour searching. I'll
Sounds
do
good.
that.
Great.
There's a couple of organizations that we haven't really mentioned this, that I highly recommend. And there's one in Maine, the Maine Grocers and Food Producers Association. I highly recommend folks checking that association out. Very supportive of Maine food industry, as well as grocers as well. And then there's the Specialty Food Producers Association, which is more of a national organization. And they have the Fancy Food Show twice a year. So highly recommend those two associations to look into those for folks.
Yeah, I'll also shout out Chris Linder put in the notes, Maine Legal Food Hub is really fantastic. I mean, if you're negotiating a lease on a storefront or whatever, they can help you with that. It's got to be food related, and we've really had great feedback from folks who've worked with them. And it's free legal advice. Again, as Chris notes, you fit their criteria, so I want to shout out to them.
Great. Yeah, there's a lot of really wonderful resources getting mentioned in the chat. So I'm going to send that whole file out to everybody so that we capture that. To that end, Beth, would you mind, someone was asking the names for the fillers that we just mentioned, the place in the various places you just mentioned. Can you either toss those names in the chat or send me an email with them and I can include it in the notes after?
I'm going to put them in the chat right now.
Perfect. All right, we've just got a couple of minutes left. Let's just poke through and see if there's any other questions we can tackle now. And, you know, I know Donna's always open to follow-ups for business related questions. And, you know, Beth has been very generous with her time and contact info. So you can reach out to her afterwards as well if you have questions we didn't get a chance to answer today. Here's a fun one. Rianne's asking if there's anyone has leads on where I can find a restaurant building for rental in the Orono or Bangor area.
Oh, it's a good question.
Yeah, that might be another good one to crowdsource in the chat here if anybody knows of anything.
Maybe reach out to Steve Goldick or some of the economic development directors in Bangor, Brewer, Orono might be a good idea.
We have another comment, someone who says they're recently a legal resident of the US. They're working on opening a brunch restaurant, required financial support, but is looking for any programs that help immigrants, women entrepreneurs, and people have responded in the chat with some great suggestions like CEI Women's Business Center, USA funding applications, and New Ventures Maine as well as mentioned there. But are there any other suggestions people want to add?
I can't think of any. Donna, can you think of anyone?
I think
No?
those are all really good starts. I think you can just see by the amount of information, Maine is really a great place to be an entrepreneur. There are a lot of good resources. And I think because we're such a small state, someone always knows somebody. And so take advantage of the fact that you're living in this state and creating a business here, because I think we really provide a great environment.
Great. Yeah, go ahead, David.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm on an iPad. I don't have a hands up thing on
It's
it.
fine.
That's okay.
I can see your human hand. It's fine.
Yeah, a real hand. Okay, Fort Food Lab does have a scholarship program. We are a nonprofit. And so we have the capability of raising money to support our members. And we put a priority on BIPOC as well as women business owners. So with the great influx of new citizens coming into Maine, there are scholarship opportunities at Fort Food Lab, and they will expand. We just in the process of getting an additional $500,000 to support additional scholarships. So reach out to us if you know anybody who's interested in that. And I would also say one more thing. For anybody who's thinking about starting a restaurant, I know Joe, you had some comments about that. One thing that having had many years of experience in food service industry and having worked with a lot of clients who are starting up food businesses, I would highly recommend starting small and validating your concept and products before you start putting a lot of money into it, for a lot of reasons. First of all, the key thing is that you have to have something is going to work before you invest highly into it. That's called a lean startup. And it's very important to start that way. Starting with a food truck is something that a lot of people have done and have then graduated into brick and mortar. So if you have a lot of money already and you're ready to self-fund a restaurant startup, fine. But most people don't. So the option, unfortunately, the options there are very limited because most banks and traditional lenders, I'm saying here, not CEI, but traditional lenders are really not going to want to lend money to a food business startup. I'm talking food service business startup for at least 3 years of P&Ls and positive growth in cash flow to show that they're able to pay a loan off. It just isn't going to happen. So start small, validate your product and concept, and then graduate. So I don't know what your financial situation is, Joe, but you really should take that into consideration before you make commitments to invest a lot of money. So that's all I want to add. Thank you.
All right, we are coming up on time here, a little past time actually. I'm gonna just ask 2 really quick questions that I think Beth will be able to answer lickety split. Is an infused vinegar an acidified food?
No, it's a predominantly acid food because vinegar is naturally acidic on its own. Acidified is typically pickles, salsas, a lot of low acid like veggies and whatnot that you're adding vinegar to.
Great. And then where can I get Serve Safe Manager's certificate in Maine?
Yes, and I think there's several areas where you can get Serve Safe certification. One was through, I believe, the Restaurant Association through the Maine website. And I believe I've got some colleagues down in the southern part of the state at the Falmouth Extension Office that are also offering Serve Safe training as well.
Great. Yeah, and someone in the chat also just added their local adult ed offered a class too, so that's another place to check. Okay, we do have to wrap up, so I'm going to skip a couple of the longer questions in the chat and just, folks know that if you want to follow up afterwards, we'd be happy to do that. Joe, do you want to, you've got your hand up one more time. You want to finish us out with one last question?
Yeah, I was going to say as far as money too, start local, go to your economic and community development office. They have a lot of resources out there, and you might be looking at food stuff, but they may have other things like downtown tip funding and all that kind of stuff. There's tons of resources out there to get money. I've tried all kinds of different things and working through a bunch of different things. And David, I appreciate everything you said, and I'm totally on board with what you're saying about starting small. I'm trying not to let my imagination run wild and go too crazy, but thank you.
Yeah, Hannah, I'm going to go out on a limb here, but this has been such I call it positive, fruitful discussion. And I've seen a couple people say, hey, are there groups, that can get together? If you wanted, and this is where I'm going out on a limb, if you wanted to let Hannah know if there was an interest in getting a small group together, I think between SCORE and the library, we might be able to kind of convene a group where you join if you have the time. If not, we kind of share resources, those kinds of things. The Bangor Public Library is very supportive of businesses. And if this is something you think that, we should meet occasionally and just talk about what's going on, I would be happy to kind of support that. So, and Beth, I think this has just been fabulous. I also want to thank the other service providers who jumped on and provided so much advice. For those of you who are thinking about these businesses or growing them, we want to help you. And I hope this has been helpful to you. And thank you to the Bangor Public Library.
Yes.
Thank you, Beth and Donna and everybody for being here. This was such a great conversation. I totally agree, Donna. If folks, how about what we'll say is when I send out the email with the recording and the slides and all of this great info that's come through the chat, that'll be either today or tomorrow. And if you're interested in sort of continuing this conversation and continuing to network with one another, just respond back to me to that email, and then I'll put you on a list and we'll figure out where we're going to go from there. But I think at the very least, we can put you all in touch with each other and provide some space if you want to meet in person.
I'd also like to offer that I could help put together a tour if any of the the small group wants to meet and get a tour up at UMaine. I'd be happy to put that together for folks.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thanks everyone for a great conversation, and stay tuned.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good
Thanks.
day.
Bye.
Bye.